Today our daughter is thriving and is our greatest joy. She enjoys watching cartoons, playing with toys, and going for stroller rides. Swinging on swings at the park and listening to music. She likes to babble and make noise, and seems to have her own special language. She has her own unique personality, is very strong-willed, and can be a wee bit stubborn at times. We are blessed to have family in close proximity, and they love spending time with our daughter. We understand that with our joy comes sorrow for your family. We can never truly understand how you must have felt on that day. We can never even hope to thank you enough for the decision you made to save our daughter's life. Saying thank you does not seem enough, considering the amazing gift you provided for our family.
To our dear recipient, we are so happy that you are doing so well in your last note to us. It is so very helpful to our family when you write. These past 3 years have moved both quickly and painfully slow. There are the times that make us pause and reflect deeply. This week has been one of those weeks. Not for the loss of our daughter, but for the real-time day-to-day events as they unravel and make us all pause in disbelief. We want you to know that as we all navigate this unknown future, you are very much in our thoughts and hearts. We know for recipients that this is always a priority to protect your health. Please know that we have our arms of love and support around you. We don't know you, but knowing of you makes us think of how we would support all family members through this time. You are most definitely an extension of ours. We can't take away your fear or anxiety around staying healthy, but we can most definitely promise you that we are following all of the recommendations that will help stop the spread of this virus. We can assure you that in our small corner, we are being responsible and doing our part. For you, all recipients, our family, and our community. With so much love, health, and courage, your donor's family.
Welcome to the Center for Living Organ Donations webinar. It's what's on the inside that counts: trust, gratitude, and organ donation. My name is Candace Coughlin.
And my name is Janine Johnson, and we will be your co-host for today.
The Center for Living Organ Donation was created by the Ajmer Transplant Center at UHN in 2018 to improve access to living organ donation for people who need a life-saving kidney or liver transplant, and those who want to give a transformative gift of life. We raise awareness, provide support, promote research, and offer hope to thousands of people who are waiting for a kidney or liver transplant and everyone who wants to be part of their future.
This event is part of NOTDA, National Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Week, which raises awareness about the critical need for more registered donors across the country and encourages Canadians to register their decision and talk to their loved ones about organ donation.
So important. I am the Education and Outreach Coordinator here at the Center for Living Organ Donation, and I also have a personal story. So I am a kidney transplant recipient as well. I was a crush start onto hemodialysis with no prior knowledge of my kidney disease until I ended up in the hospital with what I thought was the flu, but was actually end-stage kidney disease. I stayed there for about 3 weeks, where I did hemodialysis within just over 24 hours. I did that for about 4 months, and then I moved on to home peritoneal dialysis. And throughout that time, my mom was being worked up to be my donor. And we were very lucky that on September 9th, 2009, so 09, at 9 a.m., my mom donated her kidney to me. Both of us are doing fantastic. And because of her amazing gift of life to me for the second time, my husband and I were able to welcome our first child, a healthy baby girl, in February of last year.
And your baby girl is gorgeous.
Thank you. We think so.
My situation was a little bit different. In my 20s, I was diagnosed with lupus, and I was informed that over time, this lupus would ravage my kidneys. So therefore, I would need to get a kidney transplant. As a 20-year-old, I continued living my life and doing what 20-year-olds usually do. But the time came where I had to settle down and realize, you know what, this is it. I'm not feeling well, and it's time to seriously look into how I'm going to get a kidney to save my life. So reached out to my family members, and they went out and they tried to get tested, and they, found out the bad news. Unfortunately, they were not a match, except for my mom. She was a match, but they wouldn't take her kidney because of her age. So we were down and we were sad, but of course, as moms do, she came through in the clutch, and she came up with an idea. Hey, let's put an ad in the newspaper and let's see what happens. So what's the worst that could happen? So we went ahead, put this ad in the newspaper, and it went viral. It started trending on social media. The news outlets caught a hold of it, did a couple interviews, which then generated more people, more interest wanting to come out and be my donor and help me save my life. And one amazing woman by the name of Christy, she saw the ad and she decided, let me give it a shot. Let me just try and become her donor. And fortunately, it worked. And so here I am today because someone decided to donate, someone decided to give. Hence, being a donor is extremely important, extremely important.
Amazing. Thank
Yes.
you, Trillium. So before we begin, we want to acknowledge the sacred land that we're meeting on for the Center of Living Organ Donation. It's the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Thank you, Candace. So throughout today's webinar, it's what's on the inside that counts. We will be discussing what it means to be a donor, why it's important, and how we navigate trust, gratitude, and organ donation. This is a joint initiative with the Center for Living Organ Donation and the ACB YouTube channel Advisory Committee. We're excited to have one of our committee members today. His name is Chris. Not only is he the producer of the Green Table Talk on the ACB YouTube channel, but he's also an organ donor advocate, and he joins us here today. Chris went through the process of deciding whether or not he wants to register his consent to be an organ donor after he passes, and he recorded his journey. So let's take a look at some of the questions before he decided to register his consent.
All right. Yeah, I've thought about it, but I mean, it's not something that me and my friends talk about openly. I guess I'll have to have that conversation with my family. I have heard that. I've heard that like one donor can save up to 8 people's lives, I think. If I was in need, I would hopefully, I mean, I would want someone to donate an organ to me if I needed it. I've made up my mind. I'm gonna register.
Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for recording your process and informing us of some of those amazing statistics here. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Chris, tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, what made you decide to register? Like, did something happen in your life that made you feel like this is something that you should do? Because we saw a little bit of hesitancy there in the video. What made you officially decide, yes, this is what you want to do?
I mean, I had been thinking about it for a while. I think the big push was some of the material that I have been seeing lately that was encouraging people to be a registered donor. My girlfriend is an actual donor, so there is information about it in the family. But personally, myself, I hadn't registered and why I hadn't registered was just, I just simply hadn't taken the time, the 2 minutes to go onto the website and fill out the application.
So once you were talking about registering, you obviously have a lot of support in your family because you know, you have a partner who is a living donor. What did your family think about you registering your consent online?
They thought it was a great idea. They were supportive. In fact, someone else in the family has also gone ahead and also registered as well, just based off the information that I provided to them. So that, I mean, the family was receptive to the idea, but it is something that we hadn't talked about prior to this. So yeah.
Beautiful. So your action encouraged someone else to go ahead and do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even go as far as to say that I would hope that my action in registering would do the same for someone else, and encourage someone else to go ahead and register as well.
How do you feel about registering online? What was the process like for you?
You know, you do a lot of things online, but you never think about like your organs online. But the process was quick. The whole thing literally takes like 5 minutes out of your time. It's very straightforward. There's a lot of frequently asked questions and answers that are available on the website. So if you are still hesitant and you're still looking for that last bit of information, I would say that more than likely you can find it on that website.
Amazing. So you decided to register to be an organ donor when you leave this planet, and we were lucky enough that you recorded your process, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So there's another video.
Let's take a look at how that went for you.
Okay.
Help us fill in the blanks. Take 2 minutes out of your day that could change someone's life forever. So you made up your mind. You want to be a donor. So let's head on over to beadonor.ca and let's get you registered. Did you know that 1,600 Ontarians are currently awaiting an organ transplant? 90% of people agree with organ transplant, but only 35% of those are registered. So let's get you registered. Now, if you have frequently asked questions like, what organs can I donate? You can find those answers here. And if you've got more questions, click more frequently asked questions. Once you're done, head down and hit register. This will take you to the Service Ontario online organ and tissue donation registration portal. From here, you're going to register, check, or update the status of your organ donation. Don't forget your health card. You're going to have to select what type of health card you have, whether you have the red and white one or a photo health card. Me, I've got a photo health card. Then you're going to enter your health card number here. We'll have to determine what kind of series health card you have. You can find the version code with these pictures. Then select your birth date. Now, once you've got the 3 check marks, you're ready to go from here. You'll have to consent to save lives. Would you like to donate organs and tissues for transplant only or for medical research? If you want to donate all organs and tissues, click the first box. You can also decide to only donate some organs and tissues. If you want to opt out to donating some organs and tissues, click below. Let's review. We're almost there. Now you're going to give your consent. If you're satisfied with the information, then we're ready to proceed. From here, you're going to scroll down, check the consent box, then you're going to submit. Remember, you can change your mind at any time and update the information. By making the choice, we could all one day save up to 8 lives, maybe even the life of someone you love. And just like that, you're registered your consent to be an organ donor.
Wow, Chris, that was pretty cool. I'm glad you took the time to record that so we can see how simple it is. Because, you know, I actually personally thought it was a lot longer. I thought it was a longer process than that. So I'm glad you did that.
Yeah. even myself, I was surprised with how quick the process is for you to register. And I think this video does show that, and hopefully we can, get some more people to register.
Now that you've done it yourself and you see how easy the process is, I'm assuming you would recommend other people to register as well?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Fantastic. So Chris, I know that something like going through registering your consent online, it brings up a lot of questions. It makes us think about, our lives and the people that we can potentially touch. And you can learn a lot from those 2 minutes that you just went through. And I know a lot of questions will pop up in your mind as you're clicking off boxes. Did you learn anything about yourself during that process?
Yeah, I learned that I can do more. I think this is probably one of many steps that you could take. I think the next step is to give blood. Right. So I think, yeah, I learned that I can do more, and I just have to look for the information.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you so much, of course, for registering your consent, but then also bringing us along and showing us that journey.
Absolutely.
And how simple it can be.
Yes,
we really appreciate
absolutely.
that. Thank you for showing us today.
Thanks for having me.
Chris.
Thanks. That was so great.
Yes, I'm glad you did that.
So that's an awesome kickoff to our webinar.
Definitely.
Chris is now going to leave a legacy and, potentially save up to 8 lives with organ donation and impact many more with tissue donation. As he showed on his video, there's currently over 90% of Canadians who believe in organ donation, but only 32 to 35% of us are actually registered. So that's a huge gap. So hopefully Chris showing us how simple that is and how easy it is to go through that process, we can help some people to register their consent as well.
Yep, and make a difference.
Absolutely. So one family who turned their tragedy and loss into new life is Sue Morrison-Weir's family. When Sue's husband tragically passed away, she decided that she wanted her husband to live on through the legacy of organ and tissue donation. So she said she is happy to be the wife of a beautiful human being who gave as much in his life as he did in his death. So today we're going to hear Sue Morrison-Weir speak about that process and what organ and tissue donation means to her family.
Morrison-Weir. What does organ donation mean to me? Simply put, it means life. Life lost, life saved, life altered. Life is lost with deceased donation. Life is saved through donation, whether it be from a deceased donor or living donor. And life for everyone involved can't help but be changed forever. Can you imagine meeting the love of your life at 15 years old? I did. My husband Bill and I were high school sweethearts, and we married 5 years later on May 14th, 1988. We have 2 amazing children, William and Victoria. They're both now in their 20s. On August 28th, 1998, at the age of 33, Bill tragically suffered something akin to a brain aneurysm, resulting in neurological death. His physician mentioned the possibility of organ and tissue donation, and I immediately decided that if Bill could not live, that we would give the gift of hope to someone else. The transplant team was able to retrieve Bill's heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, corneas, and bones. On the day of Bill's funeral, please remember that this is pre-Trillium Gift of Life network, so things were very different then. On the day of his funeral, I received a phone call from the eye bank in Toronto advising that they had 2 recipients for each of Bill's corneas. 2 people who couldn't currently see were going to be given the gift of sight. And I was elated for them. There was no other word for it. I spent the morning celebrating my husband's life, and then I spent the afternoon celebrating for them. It gives me an insurmountable joy to know that other people have been able to benefit. It gives Bill's senseless loss some meaning. One life is lost, but so many others have been saved. Our children are so proud of their father in his life and in his death. Life is changed forever. I grieved for my best friend, my husband, the father of my children, and the tribulations of being a single parent all of a sudden to 2 children under the age of 3. But Bill's gift of life to others became a gift to me. Something I felt strongly about before became a passion and gave me great purpose. I have been blessed to spend the last 24 plus years educating and promoting organ and tissue donation and transplantation. I have met and worked with incredibly wonderful people, and my heart lifts a little with every recipient that I meet. Not being able to meet Bill's recipients just makes all of them incredibly special to me. I always say that even in the darkest times, there are silver linings. There's always some joy within the pain. And hopefully on the other side, as has been my experience, there is more joy in life.
I just got so caught up in watching the video and just, I was just saying it's such a selfless act that they did. Like it's very emotional. It's a very emotional video. And thank you to Sue and all the donor families around the world for doing something so beautiful, leaving such a legacy because of their generous act. People like myself and yourself, Candace, and everyone else that's been through this is here today. Such a selfless act.
Absolutely. Often during weeks like this week, National Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Week, there's a lot of celebration for us recipients because we have renewed life. It's a rebirth for us, and we're able to celebrate everything that we're able to do. But sometimes we don't, discuss the other side of things. And
exactly. Yeah.
Weeks of celebration like this week are also very painful for donor families, and can be a celebration as well to know that their family member has impacted so many people. But I'm sure it's difficult to continue having to live your life without your best friend or without your sister or your aunt or your uncle or whoever it is that you've decided to support their wishes and have them be an organ donor. So again,
exactly.
Like you said, thank you so much to all of the donor families out there, and especially to Sue today, and for sharing her story and all of the amazing awareness that she's brought in the over 20 years she's been doing this. So thank you.
Agreed. She's a very strong woman, because honestly, I couldn't make it through that video. There's no way I could have pulled that off. She's an extremely strong woman.
Absolutely.
So there's so many amazing people who make organ donation possible. One of those incredible people is Dr. Blaine Syed. I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, the last name, my apologies. Dr. Blaine is surgical lead for liver transplantation at the Hospital for Sick Children and a staff transplant surgeon at Toronto General Hospital. Welcome, Dr. Syed.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sorry, is it Syed?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I didn't want to butcher your name. Sorry about that.
No, you got it. Spot on.
So we know that organ donation is extremely complex, from registering donors to family decisions that they have to make in their darkest hour. But often we don't hear about who is eligible to be a deceased donor and how often the viability is. So can you explain to us a little bit about who these deceased donors are and what conditions need to be satisfied for somebody to actually be able to donate their organs and tissues?
Sure, happy to do that. I actually, as we transition to that, I do want to make a little comment before. I mean, I'm also moved watching Sue's video quite a bit. And, transplant is a really, as a practitioner in the field, it's a really interesting and complicated field to be a part of. Obviously, we have patients from a wide variety of backgrounds with different diagnoses, many of whom have been managing chronic diseases for years. And so being able to help in that setting and to provide oftentimes a lifetime cure for those diseases is obviously rewarding. But one of the most rewarding aspects is actually what Sue was alluding to, is that despite all of our technical abilities, despite all of the intelligence of the people that I work with and the drive, it is the only field that you will find in medicine where our entire field is enabled by someone saying, I'm going to do something good for somebody I don't know in general. And that's the vast majority, which is an incredibly unique perspective. There's nothing like it. And it is a constant inspiration for those who work in transplant. That doesn't matter what we can do. We can't do anything without donors. And the vast majority of people who are donating out of the goodness of their heart, oftentimes for people that they don't know. So it's a really remarkable human testament to the human capacity to do good for one another. And so I heard one of my mentors say this once, it's always stuck with me, and just to reiterate that. So in terms of who can be a donor, so if we talk very broadly from a deceased donor standpoint versus a live donor standpoint, so from a deceased donor standpoint, this is someone who has basically a devastating, generally a neurologic condition. So this could be after a stroke or some problem in which they progress to brain death. There are clinical diagnostic procedures where we basically ascertain whether or not someone is brain dead or not. These are kind of standardized, formalized approaches that our colleagues in the ICU would work their way through. Once somebody has been declared brain dead or has no chance of neurologic recovery, the family is often approached to see whether or not there's an interest in donation. Did that individual express in his or her lifetime an interest in donating their organs? Have they filled out their donor card? Or does the family think that would be consistent with that individual's wishes? At that point, the individual is assessed. In general, the younger and healthier a person is, the more likely it is that we can use the organs to help a recipient. As Chris's video mentioned, an individual donor can donate a variety of different organs or tissues to help different recipients. And so depending on that donor's past medical history and their status of health, we can potentially use kidneys, the liver, the heart, the lungs, the cornea, other tissues, the pancreas, the bowel. It just depends on that donor. So quite a few people can be helped in that setting. There are a variety of kind of indications and contraindications, but in general, it's kind of the state of health of that individual donor.
Okay. And so how many people, like the percentage of registered donors, generally end up actually being able to donate their organs?
So it's a relatively small percentage, actually, which is why it's so important for us to kind of have as many folks step forward to be donors. What it in essence requires is that someone, the vast majority of the time, that someone has a end of life event in which their heart and lungs remain functioning with the help of a ventilator, but they have progressive brain death. And so, for folks who have certain diagnoses like cancer, for instance, we wouldn't usually transplant those tissues because we don't want to transplant or pass on that risk. For people who have problematic infectious diseases, that we're passing on the risk of infectious disease, so it's actually a relatively small percentage of people who actually sign up to be a donor that we are able to use organs, which is why we have so many folks on the wait list who are waiting for organs, because it is a relatively small percentage.
So when the organs are retrieved, what happens at that point? What does the donation process look like? Like, does the organs stay there where they've been, at that particular location, or is it, airlifted to another location? You see all the time when you watch TV, on different medical shows, they're rushing to the helicopter with a little container, and they have the container in the helicopter and takes off to another location. Is that real, or what's the process like?
If it's on TV, it's
Yeah.
definitely real. Like that's TV, the medical programs don't lie. But actually, it's a great question because in some ways I think we don't demystify it enough. So I would say first and foremost, we as the teams that are going to retrieve the organs, we actually don't have any contact with the donor or the donor's family because we don't want there to be any coercion, that there feels some pressure. So that's all done by the folks at Trillium, actually, who are probably coming on after this. And so it's what we try to establish, that it's not a situation in which anybody feels pressured, that it is truly based on the wishes of that family and that individual. The hospital where that donor is would basically do all the workup. Most of that is standardized, and if there's anything else that is being requested by the other programs who might be the recipients or that are taking care of the recipients, then they will do that type of workup. For the vast majority of these donors, it's like a normal operating room setting. We have an anesthesia team, we have the surgical teams. The donors are treated with the utmost respect. We have moments of silence before we begin the procedures, and we really try to make sure that that person's wishes are carried out with the gratitude and the respect that they deserve. The process is basically like a standard operating room process, and basically the organs after retrieval are generally transported to the other programs or the other centers where the transplants are being done. There is some truth to what actually you were mentioning. For certain organs like the heart, we don't like them outside of the body for a long period of time, so we do fly in helicopters, planes. Same thing with the liver to a certain extent. Other organs like the kidneys can be out of the body for a bit longer, and so there is a rush, but not as much of a rush. And then there are teams waiting at the transplant centers with the potential recipients ready to go. It's not unusual to program, for instance, like Toronto General, that will have multiple operating rooms going on overnight, on a weekend, 4 or 5 rooms, even sometimes, with heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, multiple rooms going, literally simply from the generosity of 1 or 2 individuals. And so that's kind of the process in general.
Wow, that's amazing.
Is there anything else kind of, let's say, behind the curtains that the average person wouldn't know about this process that you think would be helpful in kind of supporting people who may be on the fence about being a donor and registering their consent to be a deceased donor, that may help us to understand the process or move that along for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that is always so striking is that in such a challenging and difficult time when it comes to deceased donation, it is in many ways a silver lining for many families. You could hear that in Sue's video, in an otherwise really challenging and emotional time. The fact that their loved one was in their death able to carry on what they did in their life in terms of doing good for others, it's a huge silver lining. In fact, many families are disappointed if their loved ones in that moment cannot be donors. And so it brings a lot of solace and relief. There's a lot of people have written about this, and there's data as well as just kind of empirically talking to folks. And even so that's for sure something that I think folks you don't know until you're in the middle of it, that is a solace and a sense of meaning in an otherwise really challenging time. And even for our folks, if we talk about live donors, these are folks who donate a kidney or a portion of their liver, for instance. Even for our live donors, and we have folks who do this in an anonymous, non-directed fashion sometimes, the vast majority, 95% plus, say they would do it again in the heartbeat, despite the fact that they undergo a surgery, which is not, trivial, because of that sense of meaning and purpose that it brought to their life, that we're so infrequently that we're literally able to help people on such a profound basis, and saying that, no matter what, I've actually helped save somebody's life, and that will always have meaning to me. And so I think that's something behind the we don't say it enough probably, but it's something that for sure is a kind of behind the curtains thing.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely a good feeling, I'm sure.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We're really grateful for all of your knowledge and for helping us understand a little bit more about those early moments in organ donation.
Pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we've learned so much from our previous guests, and we often wonder, who is it that's come to speak to the families about the possibility of organ donation? Today, we have two wonderful guests joining us who works with the Trillium Gift of Life Network, Brittany and Sharon. Sharon has been a registered nurse for 20 years and has spent the majority of her nursing years in cardiovascular surgery, ICU. And Sharon works with Trillium Gift of Life as an organ and tissue donation specialist. Brittany is also an organ and tissue donation specialist at Trillium Gift of Life Network. She's been registered nurse for 8 years with a critical care background. Welcome, Brittany and Sharon.
Thank you. Hi, we're so happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So we have so many questions for you today.
Yes.
So let's jump right in. We're wondering if both of you can explain to us a little bit about your roles at Trillium Gift of Life Network. And for today, I think we can just use the acronym TGLN so you don't have to say it over and over again. So if we're saying TGLN, that's what we're referring to. Can you explain to us a little bit about your roles, what the responsibility is for TGLN, and then maybe a little bit about, what a specialist does?
You want me to go first, Brittany?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, well, allow me. So as an organ tissue donation specialist, part of our role is to speak with families and the patients at the end of life to present them with the opportunity to donate their organ and tissue to save other people's life. Also, once we got consent from the patients and the family, we will support the staff at the hospital throughout the whole case. And also, it's our job to relay information and other requests from the transplant program to the hospital. Not only that, we also educate the staff at the hospital about donation best practices, and we also keep them up to date on any new donation initiative as well. This is just some very high level part of our job.
Awesome. And Trillium Gift of Life Network, what are they responsible for? Maybe Brittany, you could let us know.
Yeah, definitely. Trillium Gift of Life Network is responsible for organ donation and transplantation across Ontario. So we're the main service that does all of that for the province of Ontario.
Beautiful. Now, if I registered my consent to donate and my family's completely on board with me donating, what happens next? Like, would someone come and speak to my family, or what happens at that point?
Typically, when the hospital staff makes the referral to us, when the time is right, we will come on site to speak to the family and offer them about the donation opportunity. Initially, how we first started is we would talk about the person's life, how they're like and things like that. We also would explain the long process of all the details about donation process and also timeline. We'll explore if there's any special consideration that the family requests, religious background, things like that. Donation is a very complex process, and I wouldn't doubt that, a lot of people outside of healthcare system, they will have a lot of questions, and we're there to answer any questions, that they have.
And if someone isn't registered, what happens then? Is there someone that still comes out and speak to the families, or what happens at that point?
Yeah, for sure. It is our goal to approach all eligible families and offer them the opportunity to say yes or no to donation. As you know, in the previous video, there's only 35% of Ontarians are registered according to our database. But when we poll, we know that over 90% of Ontarians are pro-donation. They're in supportive of donation. For that reason, we just want to go and, what's better to ask the person and see what they want to do and what they want to do with the end of life plan. So that's what we would do. Like, we want to approach everybody.
Okay.
So Brittany, as it stands right now, if I'm a registered organ donor and the time comes that my family has to make that decision, they have the last word on whether or not I actually become a donor. So if my family, has difficulties and decides that they don't want to proceed with that donation, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, definitely can answer that question. So I'm going to say that majority of families will support a registered consent decision. So families are very happy and willing to support that because it's kind of easy. You've registered your wish and you said, this is what I want to do at my end of life. And it makes the decision so easy for families. So majority of families do support your registered wish to donate. If there are hesitancies in supporting it, we would explore with the family, what are those hesitancies? What questions do you have? And we try our best to navigate through the situation to see if we can come to, some kind of consensus so that we can still honor your wish. And we are huge advocates for honoring anybody's wish in any kind of way. So sometimes if people do not want to pursue organ donation, they still pursue tissue donation afterwards. So people can still be a donor in many ways.
Amazing.
So one of the myths that I've heard a lot, as I've said previously, I've had a transplant myself, and you talk with the ACV community and you hear a lot of myths such as, I don't want to register to donate because if I'm there, they would take my organs, even though I could still survive. There's a chance of me surviving. They'll take my organs and give it to the next person. So what do you say to someone who has that mentality that, I don't want to register because they don't have my best interest at hand? They're just thinking about the next person.
So I just want to start by saying that this is so common. It's a very, very common myth. A lot of people come to us and ask the same question, even my family. So first and foremost, the concern for the healthcare team are to look after, to care for these critical care patients, is to do everything they possibly can to help save lives. Donation would not come into the pictures until everything has been done. That's really not more they can do. That's when donation come into place. And on top of that, the healthcare team in the hospital, they don't have the access of your donation preferences. And only TGLN coordinators and specialists have the access to this specific information. So they do not know what you register for or anything like that.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm. So in regards to your work, once TGLN has been contacted and you're coming into that space to discuss organ and tissue donation, what does that conversation look like between you and the family members?
So essentially what happens is the team, either they have declared somebody neurologically deceased or brain dead, and then they speak with the family and let them know of that. Or the family has made a decision to withdraw mechanical ventilation. So in those two situations is when we would come next in to speak with families. And so when we go in, I think Sharon kind of touched on this already, that we like talking about who their loved one is or was. It really helps us get to know them and identify through their personality if they would support organ and tissue donation. So we talk about their loved one, we talk about timing, we talk about how long it takes, we talk about the process, so what kinds of tests we're going to need, what next steps we're going to take. We discuss anything relating to any religious or cultural considerations that they need. If they have questions about the funeral, we try our best to answer all of those questions. It's actually quite a lengthy conversation because we go through so many different little things that we talk about with the family, and the conversation continues. So we have our initial consent conversation, and if they say yes, then we proceed with donation. But we are always accessible to our families because we love them, we support them as much as we possibly can. And all of our families are given my phone number or my colleague's phone number so they can call us and text us if they have any other questions. And we're constantly checking in on them all the time to make sure they're updated throughout the process and answering any additional questions that come up. Because during that consent conversation, sometimes people are still grieving, they're still emotional, and sometimes half of the things I say are not 100% absorbed. So we're always checking in consistently with our families.
Right.
After organ retrieval, the families, are they told right away, like how many people are affected by, their generous donation? And if not, like how long does it take usually for the families to find out, what X amount of people, 10 people, 5 people were, affected by your generous donation?
We usually follow up with our donors' family within 12 to 24 hours of organ donations. We usually call them over the phone unless they chose not to be contacted, and we won't be disturbing them. But majority of the families that I have dealt with in the past that wanted to get that update, they find that it's really comforting for them. So we usually call them within 24 hours, I would say, post-organ recovery. Just to elaborate on the question, we usually call them and offer them, let them know that the recipient's the age group, the gender, and also the type of organ that has been successfully transplanted. But there are certain things that we won't disclose, and we'll keep those information confidential, or the patient's, the recipient's name, and the actual age, and the location of where the person received the organs. We just don't want to disclose any identifier to the family.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So Brittany, you discussed a little bit about, making sure that the donor family has their wishes met as well, with things like, potential, religious or spiritual practices that happen. I know that when my cousin passed, one of the questions was, could there be an open casket if he was an organ donor? And so I'm just wondering if there are ways to ensure that those types of wishes are upheld, and how you work with spiritual care to make sure that those are honored.
Yeah, we work with spiritual care very closely. They're basically our best friends. They help us navigate many things like religious concerns. For example, if somebody wants a priest to come and say last rites, they help us with that. If Indigenous families would like a smudge ceremony, they help us with that. These are wishes that we fulfill all the time, and we collaborate with our families in spiritual care to help with all the time throughout the donation process. If families are concerned about open casket, we talk with them and we just kind of tell them, these are where the incisions are going to be. They're going to be chest incisions. And so you won't be able to see anything. So you can still have an open casket. We talk to them about, for example, if they're donating their eyes, we say, sometimes there may be a little bit of bruising. If you tell your funeral home that this person was an organ donor or they donated their eyes, they have techniques that they can use to make them look good or presentable for an open casket. So we always talk with families about that.
Amazing. So before we say our goodbyes, I'm wondering if both of you could share with us either a story that stands out to you, or what gives you comfort in your job, because we know that it is a very difficult job that the two of you have, and you're faced with a lot of challenges in your work. And is there something that keeps you going every day?
Yeah, I mean, our donor families, I think you can tell from the video, these people are special. They are truly the most amazing, strongest individuals that you will ever meet. And I think what keeps us going and what keeps us doing this job is those families. And the favorite part of my job, like the best part of it, is when I get to call families with transplant outcomes at the end. It's typically like a really emotional phone call because you're calling them and you're saying, hey, your loved one was able to save a life through a kidney transplant. And, you know, they are so happy. They're so ecstatic. You know, sometimes they cry on the phone and sometimes we cry together because it's just such a beautiful thing. And that's definitely what keeps a lot of us going throughout this. And it is hard talking to grieving families, but I think that's the best part, knowing that we helped these families grieve and we gave them a silver lining. And some families view it as their loved one is living on through others after they have donated.
Amazing.
I guess when you see, when you're put in a room with a grieving family, everybody grieves so differently, but, you know, everybody have their own way to grieve. But, you know, for us to be able to offer a little bit of comfort for these families, and, you know, the people who are really motivated with donations really wanted the loved one to pass the legacy on through organ tissue donation. These people are really, really special people. They have the strength that came out from, I have no idea where did that strength come from. And they have that endurance, they have, they're just such strong individual. For them to think of other people when they're grieving for losing their loved one, it's super powerful. We are so honored to be able to meet these very special families throughout the process and be involved in their end of life plan as well, to be able to offer them this opportunity to, you know, have their loved one pass on their legacy. It's just something so special to our heart. And I had a young donor 2 years ago that I, until last year, the donor's mom still sent me a message and giving me her family update. Her oldest son got engaged last year, and she sent me a picture of the oldest son proposing to the wife now. Like back then it was fiance, and they were such strong, amazing family. Not only that, I remember after the daughter passed away, the donor's brother actually started a donor drive on Instagram. In 3 days, they sent me an update saying, oh, look at this. He started this post on Instagram, started a donor drive, and he got 150 people registered to be a donor in 3 days. Wow. And that was just so powerful. And so, like, you can see the strength. They don't grieve any less, losing their little sister, losing their baby daughter, but they don't grieve any less, but they somehow shift their focus onto helping other people in honor of the lost. It's just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say that the both of you are very strong, amazing women as well, because I don't know about you, Candace, but myself personally, I could not handle your job. I would be a mess every day. I would be crying all the time, walking around with swollen eyes. So hats off to the both of you, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And you are very strong women. So thank you for everything that you do as well. Thank you very much. And thank you for sharing all this knowledge and information with us. It was very educational. And I know a lot of people have walked away with a lot of questions answered. So thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. Wow. So on to, that was just, you know, it's just a lot of information. It was just, you know, just hearing those stories and Brittany receiving the picture, and it makes you feel good, you know, and yeah, it just makes you feel good. So moving on, the wave of discussing gratitude. It's my pleasure to introduce two of my friends, Tamara and Ian. Tamara was a kidney transplant recipient from a deceased donor, and Ian is an anonymous donor. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us.
So we've discussed some of our fears and nerves throughout today's webinar. One of the big fears many of us have encountered is once the organ donation process has occurred, as a donor or recipient, we have to move on with the gratitude in our hearts and communicate that. So Tamara, you were a recipient of a deceased donor. Would you be willing to share with us how you felt post-transplant about the donation?
Yes, I can share. I was filled with gratitude, a lot of gratitude, because never in my wildest dream did I think that I would ever get a transplant. I think that when they told me I had to do dialysis, that was it for me.
Wow.
Like I wasn't gonna go any further. But after getting the transplant, I was so happy. But when I think about the donor's family, then it brought me back.
Yeah.
Like why I got the chance to live because of someone else's decision, and not knowing how to say thanks. Just like thank you wouldn't be enough. Like how do you say thank you for that? Like what can I do? How do I show how I feel? I've tried, this is my my 4th year, and I've tried many times to write a letter.
But you've recently done it. You've recently written that letter, right?
I did. Sometimes I go over, say too much. Sometimes I just say thank you. And then it was just never enough, but I got the courage just the other day, and I did it. And it was like this heavy burden was lifted. I'm like, at least they know that I appreciate what they did. I am so thankful. I think I put so many thanks in that letter, but it's just not knowing if saying thanks would be enough. And when I think about it, I'm like, I want to send out the letter. I did send out the letter, but I didn't know how it would be received. And when I listened to Sue at the beginning of the program, I was like, oh my God, I wonder if they felt that same feeling that she felt when she heard back from those people. Like, I'm wondering like how they feel about getting it from me. I'm just so grateful that I actually sent it out. And even if they don't answer, I'm like, I'm still grateful, and I'm happy that they know that I am grateful.
Absolutely. And I think it's so amazing that you did that letter, because I'm sure there's a family out there who is so grateful to know that you're doing so well, and you know that you benefited from that in the most amazing way, that you're living your life and you're healthy, and you're participating in things like this to spread awareness. It's just amazing. It's such a bright light to bring into a situation like that. I'm wondering if you just went through that process very recently, as in weeks ago, right?
Yes.
I'm wondering for people who are listening to you today who haven't yet written that letter and who might be still very afraid to write that letter, if you have any encouraging words for them to go through that process.
Yes, I do. It's gonna be hard, but if you sit down and think back on where you would be if it had not been for this gift, it would give you the courage to do it. You just need strength. My cushion says
hope,
right? So I would encourage anyone, just take that bold step. It's gonna be hard, but once you take it, then you just shoot off. There's no turning back, and you'll feel so liberated, so happy that others around you know that you're thankful,
right?
But to let them know that you're thankful, I think that would be so freeing for you. So I think it's a good idea, and I do encourage you. write that letter, write that note, write that card, and send it off. You won't regret it.
Amazing. Thank you.
That's amazing.
Mara.
You're welcome.
So turning it over to you, Ian, you went through the amazing process of becoming a donor, and you did this anonymously and non-directed. You don't know your recipient, so you're on the other side. You are the donor without knowing what happened. Have you been in contact with your recipient's family at all?
No, not at all. I kind of forgot about even trying to make that connection for a couple of years after the donation. There might be a letter sitting at Transplant Manitoba in a file folder somewhere for me, but I haven't made the ask yet. And I think people struggle to understand why I haven't, but I can't even begin to think how hard a letter would be to write. So I guess I probably should honor that family's effort in putting that letter together if they did. But I liked that I was doing the process anonymously. It was an opportunity for me to do something altruistically, and the whole connection with the family made me feel very uncomfortable. I just wanted to do it for that reason and that reason alone, and then I wanted to move on. So yeah, so I have never made a connection with the family who I donated to.
Regardless, it was a very selfless gift, regardless. And I'm sure they're very appreciative for it.
And it's funny, I was thinking about today, yesterday when I was driving, and I think that I haven't made that request also because I feel like my donor journey is still, it just started. You know, it didn't end with the donation. It continues every day when I try and talk to people about living donation and signing up to be an organ donor, and maybe making that request for that letter would bring closure, but I don't want that closure because I'm not done my journey. And that's a really weird way to think about it, but maybe that's another reason I haven't done it. But I think I shared with somebody once that I have a very special birthday coming up, and I think that might be what I do for my birthday, is to make that very difficult call and ask if there is a letter there. I mean, I can always choose to not take the letter, but even if I know it's there, then I have that option at some point.
I think that's a great idea. That's a perfect way to celebrate the birthday. Go ahead, make that call. If the letter's there, great. If it's not, it's okay, because you still made a very selfless donation regardless. And you know, even though you do get this letter, it doesn't mean that's the end of your journey. Like, you still have a lot of work to do, like what we're doing right now, discussing this, and like being on the Green Table Talk, you know, putting your story out there. So it's not the end of your journey, it's just the beginning regardless. So yeah.
And you know, I've shared this before, but the whole process of donating a kidney was such a powerful moment for me, and I guess I live in that moment all the time. So maybe asking for that letter is moving away from that moment. So again, that would be another reason.
What would you do if someone came up to you and they asked you like some type of, you know, advice or hints or some type of knowledge in terms of donating? Like, what would you tell them? How would you encourage them to do it, or what would you say?
Well, I said to somebody a couple of years ago that donating a kidney is like giving somebody that extra coffee that you have in your hand. You know, you have 2 cups of coffee in your body and somebody needs that cup of coffee and you're just giving it to them. You're not losing anything. You have another cup of coffee and you're going to get that jolt. So we all are put on this earth to make a difference, and this is a very small way that we can make a difference. So if anybody even starts to think about it, then I jump on that and I keep telling them, you know, you've got to do this if you feel it in your heart, because it can make such a big difference and it's such a small sacrifice to make.
Yes, so true.
Thank you so much, Ian. I think for all of us recipients out here, you know, you donors are angels on earth here. So we're so grateful to have you, you know, talk a little bit about what it's like from the donor's perspective too. And, you know, especially from someone who doesn't know their recipient. It's such a remarkable gift that you've given, and your gift continues to give when you do things like this. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It was such a positive and hopeful way to close out our webinar today.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ian. And thank you, Tamara, as well, for joining us and sharing your story today. We are very grateful to have both of you here and to have had everybody join us today.
It's a great session.
Mm-hmm.
So today we discussed gratitude and organ donation, and we heard about how and why to register your consent to be an organ donor. We hope that today we gave you some insight into the world of organ donation from different perspectives. If you haven't yet registered to be an organ donor, as you've seen today, it takes under 2 minutes to complete, and you can save up to 8 lives with organ donation, and many others you can save with tissue donation as well. I think we would all love to leave a legacy as a hero, and when we leave this earth, and what a better way of doing so by saving a life or saving lives. We encourage you to register your consent to beadonor.ca, have the conversation with your family, and spread the word.
So to all of our speakers here today, thank you to Ian, to Tamara, to Sharon, to Brittany, to Blaine, to Chris, and of course to Sue for sharing her story through our video. And to my amazing co-host, Janine. Thank you.
And to my amazing co-host, Candace. So today's recording will be available on Center for Living Organ Donation YouTube channel and our ACV Organ Hub YouTube channel. We also have some amazing episodes of the Green Table Talk on there as well. So take a look, click, share.
And subscribe.
Subscribe, yes.
So as we've heard today, organ donation takes a massive team. From our generous donors to our resilient transplant patients to their caregivers and family, our donor families, we want to say on behalf of the program, thank you so much. To our transplant teams, the doctors, the nurses, the surgeons, admins, the social workers, Trillium Gift of Life Network, none of this would be possible without you. Thank you for your dedication to organ and tissue donation. And thank you for celebrating NOTDAW with us, National Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Week. If you guys would like to continue this and join in on some of our fun this week, we do have a really awesome, exciting thing coming up on Friday. It is called Transplant Trivia, and our host is Michael Tagan, who is also actually a living donor and an entertainer. And he's going to test your transplant trivia knowledge. So you can tune into all of our social media platforms like you did today. That will be hosted on Friday, April 29th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So actually, we have a little promo that we would like to show you before we head out.
My name is Michael Tagan, host of Transplant Trivia, coming at you Friday, April 29th, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at all your sort of streaming areas. Depending on where you live, it could be on after Carol Burnett or after Dog the Bounty Hunter. Here are some contestants. Oh, she'll be on the phone.
That's going to be fun. Can't wait for that. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on It's What's on the Inside That Counts. We hope you learned a lot of information and you have a lot of takeaways from this. And please share the knowledge with everyone else. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time, everyone.
Take care. Bye.